just a tad bit cooler today, and you know what that means? Deer season is coming soon. Archery season's open a lot of places. Farm season open some of those southern states. Here in Missouri, we got a while, but it's time to start sighting into Winchester and getting ready to put some venison in the freezer. But anytime you start talking about firearms and whitetail hunting, it seems like the argument of what caliber is best comes up. I just spoke at an event down in Oklahoma. My goodness, I opened up that can of worms. You know, you got the 300 Win Mag guys and the 223 guys and the 308 guys, and they're almost come to blows over talking about what caliber is best for whitetail deer. And today, we're gonna solve that age-old argument.
He's down.
He's down. Handy's down.
First, we need to think about what we're dealing with here. Whitetails are relatively thin-skinned as far as big game animals go. Their ribs are relatively small. Even on a big buck, most of us just can break that rib. This is not like a Cape buffalo or a rhino or even a grizzly bear. And to be honest, and a lot of people don't like to admit this, a lot of people are a little bit recoil sensitive. You may not want to admit that. You don't have to, you know, tell anyone else you are. I can remember back in the day, we used to hold this thing called Deer 101. It was a school. We'd limit it to 15 people, and we'd go through, you know, how to trail deer and all this stuff. This was long ago. There was always one big guy in every class that was a little bit macho, kind of bragging a little bit. And I would talk about we're gonna go shoot, and we'd set up these dowel rods an 1/8 inch apart so the bullet, you know, we'd have several crossdeer in the 2x4. You couldn't miss. You either hit the dowel rod head on or right between. We're talking about deflection. And we'd set targets 1, 2, 3, 4 yards behind and see how much that deflected. Everyone used to talk about brush guns back in the day. But I had another real mission here, to have the other students standing behind, and I'd give the guy that was, you know, big and boastful a bullet for this 30-06 I had. And it looked like a bullet. It had a real primer in it, but no powder. I was reloading. And I'd kind of whisper these guys, he'd be down there setting up, you know, macho man, gonna make a great shot. And I'd say, watch his head, watch his head. And every time that head's coming off the stock. Well, he would never admit he's recoil sensitive, but over time, you just have that aversion to an explosion going off right by your head. And as you're pulling the trigger, your head comes up, and that's usually a wound or a miss. One way to avoid that is have less recoil, less kick on yourself. And I found through the years that when my daughter started deer hunting, I started off with a single shot 223, and I drug a lot of deer not too far from those girls. About an 80 grain bullet, man, that baby was putting them down. I was kind of surprised myself. Then I met a friend that was doing a lot of work on crop damage, and he was using a 204, unheard of. The deer weren't even taking a step. It was a well-placed shot. Well, here's what I've learned. Any of the calibers from 223 up to 308, you know, you got your 243s, your 7mm08s, your 6.5 Creedmoors, bunch more in there. Those are all great whitetail calibers. Most of us whitetail hunters aren't shooting over 300 yards, and all those calibers have about a 6 to 8 inch drop at 300 yards if you're sighted in about 2 inches high at 100 yards. That trajectory is very flat on all those calibers. And again, whitetails are thin-skinned and not big bones. If you hit a whitetail with any of those calibers and a really well-designed bullet, you're gonna recover that deer without any problem. We've been doing this for a long time. I used to shoot a bigger gun. I had 30-06. Man, that thing was awesome. Still got it, old Winchester 30-06. Thing was great, stomped like a mule. And I myself started getting a little flinched because that gun kicked so hard. Then I backed on down to a 280. Man, 280s are inherently accurate, great guns. Then I backed down, man, 243s, 6.5 Creedmoors. Again, my daughters with the 223s. All these were putting venison in the freezer, just like that 30-06, or 300 Win Mag. We got a 300 Win Mag for those elk hunts or other hunts out west. Great gun, but you just don't need that for whitetails. So my point is, I'm not arguing calibers. I'm talking biology. And the fact of the matter is, whitetails are relatively thin-skinned. You're hitting them where you're supposed to. And I want to tell one more story here. This is years ago. I had this friend, he had this hog leg pistol. And I don't remember if it was a 500 watt, but had one of those big old cigar type bullets. He just wanted to kill a deer with this great big pistol. Someone had loaned it to him for a week and we were together hunting and he wasn't having any luck. And one day we're walking out or going out and see a fawn, a small fawn standing there. Like, well, if you just really want to kill a deer with that caliber, check off a list, you can shoot that deer if you want. This was a small fawn, folks, years ago. You can get the old hog leg up there, boom! He hit it, but not in the right spot. And this was a big old bear stopping gun. And this little 40-pound fawn, if you hit it a little far back of the kill zone, a gut shot, well, we like to never found that thing. I promise you, if I'd had a .22 long rifle and made a good shot, would have found that fawn right there. So it's not the caliber, it's always how accurate you can shoot that gun and the performance of the bullet. Daniel and I have been using Deer Season XP, if y'all been watching us for about 10 years. Awesome ammo. It's the only ammo I'm aware of built just for whitetails. It holds that bullet diameter, whatever caliber you're talking about, further out. It's got a special design, because whitetails, it's about getting the blood trail or the knockdown pin we're shooting. I'm a front shoulder shooter. I like to take both shoulders out. Even with the 243, I'm going through both shoulders. The deer's just dropping right there. Get a gun that's very comfortable. A lot of people like about 18 pounds recoil. Somewhere in there seems to be, you're not flinching. A lot of people do good. That gets you in that range below the great big calibers. And then if you're putting a suppressor on there, suppressor ready gun, man, that takes it on down. Less noise and less recoil. And get you a bullet designed for whitetails, and you'll be putting a lot more venison in the freezer, and you have a lot more time to stand around arguing about caliber if you want to continue that nonsense, because you've already tagged out. Have a gun that you practice with and you're very accurate with. If you're not accurate, you shouldn't be out there trying to take a whitetail. We want respect for the game. We want to be good conservationists. Get you a bullet that's created for whitetails. You don't need a big old solid point designed to take a lion or an elephant down. You want something that it spans well, does really good job on whitetails. For us, it's been that Deer Season XP by Winchester. Again, Daniel and I have been using that for about a decade and no problems with the results. You always want to be an ethical hunter. And most important over all that, take time to enjoy creation and seek the Creator's will. Be very intentional about that. Get in the Bible, read His Word, and apply it to your life daily. Thanks for watching Growing Deer.